Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ThePreGameNetwork podcast. This is episode 37. Uh, Joined again by my bestest friend in the whole wide world, Anthony, and we're going to talk about some video games.
Yeah,
So,
for the first time in a brand new year.
yeah, first episode of 2025, which is pretty bonkers. Halfway through the decade already.
Oh, it's you threw me a curveball there. I thought you were gonna. I'm so used to hearing people go like, "Oh my god, time goes by." You were hyper specific. It's like, "Oh my god, half a decade has gone by." I was stunned. I didn't know how to come back to that. So yeah, okay. I guess it's been
Wondering
5 years out of the
uh,
10.
fucking dead air there for like 2 seconds.
I wish you could have
Um,
seen my face.
uh, so. To start it off like every other episode, about what we've been playing. This is actually where some of my something that like I want to talk about comes into play. Um,
Oh,
so I'll just go first because I think that it's going to be very different as opposed to what I normally play.
mm.
Um, I for one I haven't touched Helldivers this week.
Oh
I
wow.
haven't touched Delta Force. I haven't. Well, I said
Okay.
I wasn't going to play that
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah. That
Um,
one you mentioned.
yeah. I've been playing a lot of Path of Exile, but you already knew that.
Of
Um,
course.
I've been playing Rivals almost nightly, and
Oh.
I downloaded and started playing Balatro on my phone.
Oh boy.
I well, okay, so I there's a explanation for this kind of
Mm.
sorta.
Okay.
Um, so you know how like Google has the like survey thing that you can get rewarded for, and um you know, you answer some questions that give you like $1 here, a couple cents there. I had
Yeah.
like almost $20 saved up in my account. I just don't spend it.
Yeah.
Um,
Just like pocket
so
change.
yeah, so like I was on the App Store one day and Balatro was there. It's a $10 app. Like that's pretty expensive for an app in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say
So
so.
yeah, so I had like $17 on my Google account. I'm like, fuck it, I'll just give it a try. I mean, it won all these awards. Everyone gushes over it.
Even me.
See what all the fuss is about, except for you, I know.
No,
Um,
I said even me. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it because
oh, oh,
it managed to get my attention.
right. So, I understand now why it won so many awards, why it got all the praise that it got. I'm not saying I'm like infatuated with it or anything,
Oh no.
but I um I find myself opening the app and like playing a couple hands every time I have like 2 to 3 to 5 minutes to kill, you know?
Okay.
Like, and I can see how everybody who plays this fucking game the world over is like, send help, I can't stop playing, you know? Because it doesn't give you a second to really like take a step back and collect yourself unless you mess up a run.
Yeah, it's
Um, and
surprisingly fast paced.
yeah, also for what it's worth, I have never been good at poker. I don't really know like any of the rules to any poker game, and I was
Hmm.
never able, and I've never understood like what a flush, a full house, like a royal flush is. I've never understood any of
You
that
never
stuff.
played poker.
Yeah, I am actually starting to understand it now that I've played this a little bit.
Yeah, that's an
Um,
interesting angle where you'll learn about all the poker hands, as you
well,
just play this game.
it it teaches you like about gambling and poker just by playing. And apparently like, somebody tried to ban this in some country. I don't remember where it was, but
I
I
don't
think it
know.
was the ratings board, something like
So
that.
I don't know about banning, but I think Peggy
Yes,
changed its
yes.
rating under
So
the
adults
pretense
only.
of because of gambling, and gambling is
Yeah,
obviously like that they've been litigating against that since Overwatch came out, with loot
right.
boxes and everything.
Yeah. So I've been playing Balatro like every time I like sitting in the break room at work, or if I'm taking a shit and like I'm just trying to kill some time while I'm in there, like
Yeah.
I'll play Balatro. Um, it was a $10 app. I got it from like the Google Play credit that I had. Uh, that being said, I don't know if I would ever actually purchase it on PC. Like, is it on console?
It is making its way. I think it's on the Switch now, and it's making its way to other consoles, or it might already be on there. When I remember when it was getting awards, it wasn't on all the consoles yet.
Okay. Um, I would never purchase it for a console or my computer. I don't think it's worth. Uh, it's too mobile gamey to justify like
Yeah,
a mainstay console purchase.
yeah, I see what you mean. $10 is a tough sell for a game that
Even
is.
an app.
Yeah, it's so weird to say because you will get hours and hours out of it just based on like how you can slot it into so many time killing spots in your day. But it's like it's scaled in such a way where I don't know if I couldn't pay $10 for it, you know?
Right. Well, I was never gonna reach into my own pocket
Yeah.
to buy it, but it just so happened that like it was the perfect storm of circumstances where I
Yeah.
was just like, okay, whatever, I'll just try it. And understand now why people gush about it. I
It's
understand why it won Mobile Game of the Year. Like I get it. And it was one guy sitting down coding a bunch of if statements in whatever,
yes.
you know, compiler he uses, which is pretty cool. And I did not think it was going to be like a roguelike. So that was another interesting development.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, I kind of mentioned it, but when I first started playing it and I looked at it, it's like it hit all the right marks for me too, as somebody who's not into roguelikes, because it's just like, oh, there's different decks you can go into, and there's different difficulties on each deck, and you unlock different jokers as you go along. There's tangible progression there that I don't normally get out of roguelikes when I do give them a shot. So that was nice too.
Mhm. The one thing that I do have a question about actually is when you are playing a hand, like it seems to ignore suit. Like if you have uh one pair or two pair and they're different suits, like will you get bonus points for that? Or does it just ignore that
So in the
overall? I don't really understand how that works.
in 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 the context of Balatro, you can like get modifiers and different jokers to give that will give you more points based on the suit. But in the traditional poker hand, in a pair and things like that, suit normally doesn't come
Okay.
up. It's only in larger hands that can have different cards, because you typically, like, Balatro is the only situation where you would get two pair that contains multiple of the same suit.
Okay.
Because there's normally only four. You know what a
Right.
52
Of
card
course.
deck is. It's just in Balatro there are, and this isn't really so much a spoiler, but there are three hands you can get that you just couldn't get out of a normal deck that Balatro will give you credit
Okay.
for. But that's like
I see you
when you
say
start
that's a
really messing
spoiler,
with your
but I
deck and
would
stuff like that.
never have known that.
If you like logically, like in your mind, go, wouldn't this do this with like hands that are like 5 cards and up, but like you'll have cards that you could never have in a normal regulation deck, and Balatro will give you credit for them. Like there's unique high tier hands that you can pull off.
Yeah, it's
And
a
once you yeah,
it's a fun little game. It's like the perfect time killer.
yeah,
I slot it in the same uh bucket as like Vampire Survivors or Deep Rock Galactic
yeah,
Survivor.
and all
Like,
the
yeah,
auto
it's the same
shooters
type of
that
thing. It
yeah,
hits the same
I figured as
dopamine
much.
release as those games.
Yeah, it's I think when we talked about those games, I said it's like you can fit these games nowhere else. You wouldn't sit down and play them, sitting down to play a game. But like if you have anywhere between 2 and 10 minutes to kill, or you're not at home, these are the games that you would play. And I agree. I mean, it's a little different for me because I have it on the PC. Like it's one of those games that, hey, Balatro runs well when I'm rendering videos, or I'm waiting for Luke or Harrison or you and Eric, and it's just like, Balatro, I can just pick it up and play for like the 5 minutes while I'm waiting, and it does that very, very well.
Yeah, it's a fun little game. So that was something new that I played this week. I was not anticipating talking about this, but here we are. In addition to that, Marvel Rivals, I've been getting
Yes.
back into. up until this point, I've only played it either by myself or with a group of like maybe two other people, and I didn't know what hero to pick. I didn't really know how the game worked, and I was just getting my shit pushed in. It just wasn't like a good experience for me. Fast forward to like last week, I started playing with a full squad of people, and I picked the Punisher, which is like basically Soldier 76 or whatever.
It's
Uh,
the way I describe Punisher is he's just straightforward damage. He's
yeah,
Soldier 76, but without like the healing support attributes. He's literally just get
right.
in,
Just
kill
big
things.
man shoot gun. Like that's all
Exactly.
he is. But just fine. Actually, ironically, like on the difficulty meter for the characters, he is 1 star. He is the easiest to use. Which, whatever. I don't. It's fine.
Nothing wrong with that.
But also Punisher like kind of just speaks to my general play style of gaming anyway. Like I'm a shooter fan first and foremost. And like that's all Punisher is. Like he has an assault rifle, a shotgun, a smoke grenade, a zip line, his ultimate ability, and there's one other thing, and a stationary turret that you could deploy.
Yes.
Um, and so the first time I played as Punisher, or the first night I played as Punisher, I played 5 matches. I won 5 matches. I got MVP all 5 matches. I shit on everybody I came across with Punisher. Now, maybe it's just because he puts out the most damage, like the most straightforward. Um, but I I like hit an epiphany with that character, and I just went to town, and it was like a different experience entirely. So
Yeah.
I've been playing like an hour a night, or maybe like 2 hours a night, as Punisher with a full 6 stack, which is definitely the way to go. And I have been consistently hitting top of the leaderboards and MVP most games. And like it's such a stark difference compared to what like the first time that I played. Like I played as Hela. I think I tried Cap and maybe Thor, and I just like the up close and personal melee style combat is not really my thing. I didn't know who had range attacks and like just guns in general. I guess Punisher would have been the obvious choice, but I just didn't see it when
It
I
can be
was.
overwhelming if you
Yeah,
don't really know what you're expecting and you're just presented with a large list of heroes, a lot of whom appeal to you just from knowing the heroes.
right. That's pretty much exactly what it was. Because do you remember when Avengers came out and we started playing that? Like obviously it didn't
Yes.
last very long, but I picked
Yes.
Cap, and that
Yeah.
was just my character. Like that was the mentality I was going in with in
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Rivals, and it just
And it
wasn't translating.
yeah, the Avengers an action RPG where it's like all of the characters are meant to be a certain flavor of the same type of gameplay is a bit
Mhm.
different than a hero shooter, but that's one of the things that a lot of people who, are into the different IPs that get adapted this way kind of gripe about. It's like, oh, your favorite hero doesn't play the way you want, and that can be discouraging from the get-go, but regardless, when you have a hero shooter, one of the trickiest things can be finding a hero that you really enjoy and you also are good at playing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really like a hero shooter fan anymore. I think I played Overwatch a decent amount when it first came out, but I
Mhm.
dropped that a while ago. Um, and ironically, what their pitch was for Overwatch 2, I was pretty excited for. Like I would have played a decent amount of PvE only Overwatch,
Yeah.
but they scrapped it and they put in no significant changes for the quote unquote Overwatch 2 sequel they
Yeah,
put
they
out.
certainly
So
got a lot of people to move over though, huh?
anyway, so Marvel Rivals was like a stark turnaround for me.
Mhm.
So I've been playing that. I've actually been enjoying it, which I am very shocked at.
Good.
And I'm probably gonna play it a little bit tonight.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I said that I was playing Path of Exile still.
Yeah.
Marvel Rivals, Balatro, we already went over, right?
Yep.
And that's pretty much all I've been playing this past week. So
Right.
I'm
That's
gonna
fair.
turn it over to you.
Sure. So aside from my usual games that I play passively, I decided to take a peek at two boomer shooters I had sitting on my PC because
Go on. I
apparently,
love me a good boomer shooter. You know
yeah,
that.
because apparently one of them is getting a sequel. So I figured, they've been sitting here on the download drive long enough. I think for a combined
Ion
total.
Fury?
Good guess. That's the first one. That's a game.
God damn.
The first is Ion Fury, because I actually think we talked about going to download it and how the dev had positions on that or whatever. And when we had that conversation years ago, I had tried it. I just never beat it. So I went back and I beat it this time around. My opinion on it is about the same as it was then. It's a serviceable Duke Nukem inspired game.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It's
that's
very
all it needs to be.
Yeah, back when I had first tried it, I really hadn't gleaned how on the nose it was, right? With it's very cheesy, and that, there's nothing wrong with that. It knows what it is, right? And it's fine for what it is.
What's the main character's name? Is it Shelly or something?
Oh, I've already forgotten. Is that bad? Because they don't really say it all that often.
I know. No, it's something like that. It doesn't matter.
But she's always cracking wise. She's making the joke like a Duke Nukem. That's the whole point.
Yeah, she's female Duke Nukem.
Yes, and
probably way
there's
less
nothing
crude.
Yeah, and it's it is what it is. It's very clearly a love letter to that style. If you have all the games
built
that
in the same engine.
Yeah, that too. I actually had forgotten about that part until now. But yeah, my opinion hasn't changed. It's a serviceable Duke Nukem successor or homage, however you want to put it, right? Mm. Now, the second game, like if you look at Doom, right? And you have that classic Doom game in the middle, and then on the right, you have Duke Nukem, which is a little bit more lighthearted, a little funnier, but it's still in that vein, right? And then, if you go the other direction, you have games like Blood, which is a bit more grim and everything like that. Yeah,
you've told me to play Blood before. I haven't gotten around to it.
You'd probably enjoy that, but where I'm going with this is like it's a bit more grim, it's a bit darker, it's a bit more bloody and gory. That's where the second one is. It's called The Citadel. Is that one you've heard of?
It rings a bell, but I definitely haven't played it.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna look it up right now. Continue.
Yeah. So basically, like the whole thing, like that, I downloaded around the same time as Iron Fury. They've been sitting in the same spot. The whole thing I had always heard about it is like just controversy around it, because everybody like if like a game flirts with certain ideas and designs too much, everybody likes to call you either a creep or a fetishist or whatever. So like that's the first thing that I had always heard of. But I think what people don't really quite understand is the guy that made the game, he's clearly not into like anything sketchy, but he is into guns and shit, because there is a surprising amount of like weapon and item management in there. Like what's the best way to put this? It's like if it's a magazine-fed weapon, you need to keep track of your magazines. It's one of those games where it's like you don't just have the infinite pool of bullets. You got to manage your magazines, otherwise you waste all your ammo. If it's a single shotgun like a Magnum, you need to load bullet by bullet manually by tapping reload.
You have to like tap, like if you were to reload a Magnum, you have to tap the reload button 6 times.
Yes. By default, and I did not see any toggles on there because it's actually interesting, is by default is you need to press reload for every action, every step of the reload. So like bullet by bullet, mags, that kind of thing. And it's actually interesting. I was curious, like I wasn't going to turn it off because I like to lean into what the game offers at first, difficulty and all that. When I went to check, there was no way to change that, but by default, how nice of them, they turned off gun jamming. So apparently your guns can jam if you fuck up the reload. But it's basically, it's not as detailed as like Ion Fury or Duke Nukem would be. It's very basic, like the maps and the designs are kind of like more like Doom, and it's like an eerie, gory game. Like the whole plot is like
it's made by one guy, you said?
I believe it's just made by the one guy. The whole plot is like it's one of those far off future kind of things where it's like, oh, God is real, but he left because he's disgusted by like how connected with technology humans have been. And then like angels came down and worked with humans, but then like everybody got corrupted because of the implants that everybody was doing, and you're basically working your way through angels and the corrupt in order to kill like a new god. It's one of those.
I like it. I like that premise.
Yeah, and like, but the whole thing is like the guy is Japanese. It's got a more anime lean to it with the style, but you never really get to see it because it's just like it's a first-person shooter. Everybody's, either cloaked or like some form of mech, and you get to pilot a mech at one point, which is also very cool. But it's one of those games where it's I'm enjoying this. It's a boomer shooter. It is for what it is. I find the fact that the weapons handle the way that it does. I am the kind of guy that when I play like Resident Evil 5 and 6, I always turn off automatic reloading. Like, I prefer to like have to manage my ammunition down to what's in my weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's always something that I want to do. So I've been enjoying it for what it is.
That's good. Apparently they made a sequel to it. Or
That's
a sequel.
That's what I said at the beginning. Seeing that sequel reminded me that I had these games on my computer. Okay. So I'm so I went back and I beat Ion Fury, but I haven't beaten the Citadel yet. I think I'm about like a third in. I'm a little past the first time you use a mech.
There's a lot of different boomer shooters on Steam. It's like crazy.
Yeah, it's actually funny because when I saw this, I'm just like, Beyond the Citadel, and I looked at that, and then it's just like, also check out boomer shooters, and it's just like a revolving door after whenever they boomed back when I think Ion Fury was new. I think there's just been more and more of them, which is nice. It's good to have that variety. But
one that I really want to play is called Sulaco, and it's also built on the same engine that Duke Nukem was built on.
Yeah, a friend of mine had actually played that. He's been recommending that to me.
Oh, really? Yeah, it looks really good. I would add, actually, I'm going to add the Citadel to my wish list now. Yeah. Because I'm never going to remember it.
Yeah, the only reason I haven't played that other one yet, Sulaco, is that how you pronounce it? I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only reason I haven't played it is because it's early access. I'm not saying that like it's incomplete or that there's bad intentions. It's just I prefer to wait for the full release.
It is incomplete.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like I'd prefer to wait for the full release. I don't think that the devs have anything underhanded going on. But yeah, no, that one looks good too. I want to play that when it's done. But surprising, out of my wheelhouse because I love those older shooters, but I'm not quite like you mentioned that like you always love yourself a good boomer shooter. I'll play them when they're in front of me, but they're not necessarily the biggest thing for me.
Problem, like this goes back to my long running. I hesitate to call it an issue, but I guess it is an issue. The sheer volume of games that I just want to play, and there's just no way. Like there's no way I can get to all of them.
Yeah.
So I have this massive backlog in the form of my Steam wish list. That like, if I happen to have a free moment, like a lull in my gaming for that week or whatever, I'll pick one up and I'll play it. But like, again, it's just like you said, it's a revolving door of content that we live in now.
Yeah.
And unless I know life it, there's no way I'm getting all of it, which is depressing to me. But it's also like a kind of a positive thing. I'll never not have something to play.
Yeah, I think the last time we talked about it, I did mention like you'll find a time to like play all the things that you want, I would say. But the nice thing about the boomer shooters is they tend to be relatively not bite-sized but smaller.
Yeah.
It's like there's anywhere between like a solid double-digit worth of levels, but it's just like as you get the feel for the game, you start flying through the levels, and that's kind of a universal across all boomer shooters, be it Doom or Bloat or Duke Nukem or Ion Fury or the Citadel. That's pretty much the shared DNA. You can really start flying through them when you get a grip on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that that's out of the way, news proper. What are we looking at? This week?
I mean, there's been a decent amount. It always seems like as soon as the year kicks off, like news just starts rolling in across everywhere, really. I actually saw this actually happened like yesterday. That Notch popped up out of nowhere and decided to
really?
Yeah, he casually announced that he's like, yeah, sure, I'll make a spiritual successor to Minecraft 2.
Oh, Jesus.
So everybody's been kind of running with that, and I'm just like, my opinion on him and the whole situation with like the different projects. I don't give a shit about the controversies because those are overblown, but I mean like his general development history is that he kind of knows where he stands with that. Like Minecraft is one of like I think 10 projects he's tried to make that just never solidified. And he flat out says he's like, I hear what people want. and I'm struggling with the things that I want to do, so why not just make what everybody else wants me to make, right? And he said he's completely serious about it, so we'll see what
All
happens. He
right.
says that whatever happens with the project, he wants to bring it up and he wants to do like a long running early access so that he can get feedback on it. So I'm immediately like, who knows? But I thought that was interesting because that immediately causes an uproar because number one, Minecraft is just a massive game and everybody kind of has a hand in it as far as interest wise. But like the fact that you like the first things first is like it's not people getting excited like, oh, there might be some kind of successor to Minecraft, but people going, Notch is a bad man. And I'm just like, oh, shut up. Just shut the fuck
Notch
up.
has nothing to do with Minecraft anymore. He's just
But
the
that's
guy
the
who
thing.
made it.
Yeah, but they like that because he has certain opinions on certain cultural and political things. So it's just like now that he's out, it's like he sold the game. He started like he has billions, so he's off living his own life, and he started making statements about things politically and culturally. So now everybody hates him, and that's it's whatever.
Yeah.
But so we'll see what comes of
Well,
that.
something that's going on right now was like not really like news, but it's something that I actually kind of wanted your opinion on because it's a interesting direction that I think, and it has to do with Helldivers. Just gonna throw that out there right now.
Yeah.
Um, so the one of the lead devs on Helldivers went on Twitter and was basically like, "We are gonna support this game until we reach a point where it it basically looks like Helldivers 3.
Yes.
Like we're gonna update it enough that we're gonna implement enough change where it's gonna like sequel levels of content, which I think is
Yes.
actually really, really cool. And if you don't have to go out of your way to make a third game, if you could just support Helldivers 2 by giving us more content updates and adding things to the game or changing what maybe doesn't work, I think that's like a really good the really good direction to take the game because one, you won't have to make people pay money for a sequel. Two, you're already like riding the coattails of all the positive sentiment from Helldivers 2, and you're just making the game better. And three, like I feel like it's just the right thing to do ethically. I don't know. I when I saw that, I was like, huh, like, okay, let's see where this goes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of wanted your opinion on like them evolving the game from what it looks like now to what it could look like a couple years down the line if it's actually going to look like a successor to how Helldivers 2 launched.
Yes. So in general, I like long-term support. Whether it's the old way of doing expansions or the early days of DLC or this kind of new era that we find ourselves in when it comes to live service and games that are supported similarly to live service, right? I do think that nobody has really done this modern era of support correctly, and I would like to see it done correctly. One of my earliest expectations of like the kind of thing you're saying they want to do for Helldivers was I was interested to see Destiny do that. And
So it's actually funny that you bring up Destiny because
yeah,
in my immediate like sphere of games that I play, the only other game that I could think of that gave their existing game enough content updates to make it look like a sequel would have looked like is Destiny 2. Just how they handle the subclasses and the way that the gear works and everything. Like you never would have thought when Destiny 2 first launched that they were going to put in weapon crafting. You never would have thought that you would have been able to use like different abilities across all the subclasses in one subclass. Like that's what Prismatic was. So as
yes,
far as like updating a game to the point where it looks like what the sequel would have been, that's the only other game that I would think of that I play personally. Now I am not commenting on like their monetization or the way that the studio has been headed because that's a different fucking conversation all on its own.
yeah, yeah,
But as far as like just the content updates, like Destiny 2 is the only other game that I play that that would fit that bill.
yes. So, as so to kind of answer your question a bit more, I guess directly, is I like that idea. I am fond of it, but I think that, you know, just even theoretically, it's kind of a tight line to walk down. Just because like there's a lot of things where if you look at all the examples I gave, like games that got expansions, live service games, there's already a conversation about like losing what you initially paid for. Like there will reach a point in time, regardless of what Helldivers does, whether it fully reaches that sequel level content update level, right?
Yeah, well, man, it took Destiny 2 like 6 years,
like,
or 5 years.
But basically what I'm getting at is you will have people that have their individual cutoffs as for where they like the game.
Oh, yeah.
Like Helldivers 3.0. Helldivers 2 3.0 will be the perfect version of Helldivers for somebody. Meanwhile, the game will end at like Helldivers 3, which will be Helldivers 2 7.0, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, I don't think there is a company or a plan in place in the various spaces of the industry present that will give everybody what they want, but I do think long-term updates that fundamentally change the game for the better is a good strategy. I mean, how could you say no to that? I do think that in a perfect world, you would have various watermarks and cutoff points where you continue improving, but you also like segment the game in a way that allows people who want to, like, you know, every now and again go back to how things were at a certain point, you know, to go back to that and enjoy that for what it was, because it's hard to kind of quantify exactly what it is that it will be that is lost in the transition along the way, but there will be, like, it's the same thing as like obviously I'm big into fighting games, right? The standard for fighting games for a long time was a fighting game comes out, and at the same time this fighting game is running in the arcade, and then the arcade game will get an update, like it'll be the super version, you know, like Street Fighter 2 and then Super Street Fighter 2, and then on the console you would need to buy the entire game again, right? And I'm just like, in a way that's better for people who always want to have the original game, but it's obviously not as cost effective, right? But moving into an area where it's more cost effective with expansions and patches and updates like the one you're describing for Helldivers, you lose the fact that I can no longer go back to what I initially paid for, right? So it's a tight line to walk. Ultimately, I think it's for the better. I just think that the people who actually want to walk that route and just, you know, have a game and build it up because you're passionate about it and you have a good audience for it, the people who actually want to walk that route won't necessarily be savvy enough to preserve the very thing that they made along the way, you know? It's tricky. Ultimately, I think it's a good idea. My two caveats would be, you know, preserving what it is at every step of the way, and also the fact that pacing of update structure, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, you lose steam quickly. And I'm not saying that should be inherently, like, a negative thing. It's just, it's tough for a multiplayer game like Helldivers that's driven by its player base to, you know, maintain the attention necessary to justify giving it content updates if you're only doing major updates like every 3 months, right? It's almost like what is it? What's that triangle called? Where it's like you can have 2 of 3 things at any given time, but not all 3. Where it's just like not the literal, but it's like you can have it quick, you can have it cheap, or you can have it good, but you can never have all 3.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Imagine, like, I'm kind of there's an equation there that I wasn't prepared to present today, Professor. But there is like, nobody has tried to do all 3, right? You're either not putting out enough content, you're not doing it quick enough, or you're not, you know, you're charging for it to a certain degree. Ironically, the only game that has come close to like really, 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 really consistent and good live updates is Call of Duty. And the cost of that is that, you know, there's multiple instability issues. There's the fact that, you know, the microtransactions are ridiculously overpriced. But if I boot up Call of Duty right now, there's a shit ton of new gameplay content waiting for me that I don't have to pay for. So it's you gotta pick your you gotta pick your poison. Really, it's either, you know, what I'm
We've
saying
talked
is,
about this before with
oh,
COD.
we
Like,
absolutely
it's essentially
have.
a live service game. They just have
Yeah,
your yearly fee that you pay into every year.
exactly. Yeah, there's a whole conversation to have about this topic in Call of Duty itself. But basically, what I'm saying is, it's a good concept on paper, but I guarantee you, when they start doing it, there's an unforeseen cost that we are going to encounter, or you're going to encounter. And I'm not saying it's going to derail the entirety of Helldivers 2. I don't think it's going to be doom and gloom, but I do think it's not going to be quite like, there's going to be a couple snags along the way. But the concept is ultimately good. It's tricky. Like if it were me, if I were making a game, you know, I would if I had ideas for the game, you know, before going to a sequel, I would update it and try and put as much as I could into it, but there would be costs, you know?
Yeah.
But I guess the final answer to your question is, it's a good idea. I want to see where it goes. There's multiple things it needs to confront while it does that, both from the, you know, the aspect of the game's DNA, how the players will react to that, and exactly what's going to give cost or how long it's going to take for them to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm so lenient on games having like a little pocket where like the casual consumer that'll just buy fucking anything, like, milk those people dry. That, you know, Call of Duty does that, Street Fighter 6 does that, but the turnaround is that, you know, games should theoretically get support. It happens more often in Call of Duty, not so much in Street Fighter, but yeah, that's there's a whole lot more to that conversation. But to answer what you were asking me about Helldivers 2, that's it. I think I'd be interested to see where they go with that. Yeah, net positive.
All right. Well, I mean, I have a couple other things lined up. So if you wanna, you know, hit a point of yours, then I'll go back to what I want to talk about.
Yeah, this is more of just a little thing to kind of go back to, but it's something that I'm glad to see get more attention and not just the ramblings that I occasionally do. I was flipping through the usual, the different feeds, different social media, and something caught my eye. A developer, I think he's just some low-grade guy, was getting aggressive on social media.
Oh, a developer was getting inflammatory on Twitter, huh?
Yes, and I didn't know what he was arguing about, but because he was getting aggressive, I immediately, it just makes me go, okay, whoever frustrated this guy is probably in the right. So I decided to look a step further, and I found that IGN wrote an article about games with yellow paint, and they were painting it in a negative light. And I was surprised that mainstream industry media was actually noting, like, hey, yellow paint in video games is asinine, it's stupid, there should be better ways to do it. And this guy was losing his shit because it's like, devs already told us why they do this, it's proven that it works and it's right. And I'm sitting there, I'm just thinking to myself, there is no level of stupidity worth courting that we should sacrifice, like, good gameplay design, good level design, and just general quality of work. You know, like, if you have to have something, like, if you've done all these tests and you're just like, 2 out of 10 people will be able to complete the games better if we just ruin, like, the immersion, you know, like, is it really worth it at that point? Just move on. But I guess, like, the only thing is, like, I guess more people are talking about it, so it's not just me ranting about them ruining Dead Rising anymore. It's more people are pointing out that yellow paint is kind of asinine. I have noticed a few games try to go a different route with, like, flowing white cloth. Like Silent Hill 2 kicked that off, and I think a few other games have tried that. But I'm just thinking to myself, back in the day, there were so many little clever level design choices that, like, even if you felt the need to guide a player, there were ways to do it. Somebody posted one of those Valve commentaries that I like, you know, talking about, if you remember that, with the little commentary tracks in the Valve game, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Somebody posted a Portal one where the guy highlights, somebody might not notice this box, so let's cast a warm light on it, right?
Okay.
just natural lighting in the room is changed very slightly, not in a way you'll notice, but your eyes will be drawn to a different part of the map so that you're better guided. And then I think to myself, the biggest, the biggest culprit, I guess you could say, the yellow paint are all the modern Resident Evil games. They coded in everything. And you think Resident Evil 4...
The first thing that comes to my mind is Uncharted.
Oh, Uncharted, yeah. Uncharted did it too. Although... even though I don't condone it really, they did it a bit more subtly where it's like yellow tape, not yellow paint. I guess maybe that's a little more. But so like look at Resident Evil 4 remake, right? I should have boxes and ladders and shit, random things coated in yellow paint, right?
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4 Vanilla, it was still kind of obvious, but it wasn't as jarring. Is like all the breakable items were like highlighted, almost like an old cartoon, right? Where like things that were going to move in a scene were like noticeably brighter. Like you're like, okay, that's gonna move, but it naturally drew your eyes to it. But then I thought, like, I don't even need to think about like going back to the original version of Resident Evil, because later in Resident Evil 4 remake they do it much more subtly. Like there's like when you get to the castle area of Resident Evil 4 remake, there are, like, instead of breaking boxes and barrels, you're breaking, like, high-end vases and stuff like that, right? And it's just, like, we're not stupid. We still know to go break that for goodies, right? So, like, why is it so lopsided, So it's just, like, I got to rambling again when I saw it and here now, but, like, it was just nice that even, like, the hack journalists are going, this is stupid. So at the very least, it's a popular opinion to say yellow paint on fucking everything is stupid, and them thinking we're all idiots is stupid. So.
I remember when you were doing the Let's Play for Dead Rising, and like, or even in the YouTube shorts, like you would stop and focus on like the fucking arrow pointing up the stairs. Like,
yeah, it's just
go this way.
Yeah, it's just my luck, Dan, that like the stupidity of this peaked in a remake of one of my favorite games ever. Just like I yelled about it when I was talking to you and Joe about this months ago, where it's literally like a stairway that the cutscene beforehand tells you to go to now has in big bright yellow paint this way. I can only rant about it so much, but that's just so fucking stupid. So fucking stupid.
Yeah. All right, well, moving on from there, touch on some Space Marine 2
Go
news.
for it.
I mean, it's nothing major. They kind of like updated their roadmap into 2025 with more like there's a new map coming, a new operations map rather, more skins. I don't think there's a new weapon. I think they already dropped that. But this just kind of goes back to the whole, they never struck while the iron was hot. And I think that the game will have its dedicated, hardcore fan base, but I kind of think they dropped the ball on what they could have done with Space Marine 2. So I think it launched with enough content, but like in the next month or the month after, they should have like given us way more content than we got. One map after 2 months was not enough.
They definitely did not capitalize on the momentum and goodwill that they got out of the gate.
Yeah. And I mean, this game is screaming for a horde mode, and on the roadmap, it's like, oh, it's coming in Q4 of 2025. Like, fucking why? Like, you guys are known for World War Z, and the whole thing with World War Z is the horde mode. Like, you would think, and it runs off of the same engine, so you would think that they had the blueprint in place already.
Or at the very least, they knew to prioritize it to some degree, because people were asking for it. Like, this was a question before the game launched.
Yeah. I guess I'm just more frustrated with the fact that, like, I've played the shit out of Space Marine 2, and I want to play more. I just don't want to go through the same things that I've already played. I also think that the progression system needs an overhaul. I don't think that it's what it should be.
Yeah. I think something I mentioned when we were talking about Space Marine 2 when it was brand new, it's kind of like, what my take on it from the get-go was that, the end game stuff, both what you progress and what you get, and also things like, just what's available to do at the very end, just wasn't enough. It's not that it wasn't fun, and we all got like a great deal out of it. It's just, it's not there for, it wasn't good enough for the gap between game launch and content waves. It's just not spaced appropriately, which is, it's like kind of what I touched on when you were asking me about the Helldivers stuff. It's like that can hurt your game even if you have a very solid foundation, a very solid game in place,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I think Saber kind of dropped the ball with that. I mean, I'm still gonna play the new content that they come out with whenever they come out with it. But it just wasn't. I don't think it was enough.
Yeah,
So
it's not. It's not what it needed, and it's definitely not what what you could have done with it. Like I respect the fact that Space Marine 2 in itself is complete. We talk up and down about how it is that 360 game just coming out in today's time, and that has its downsides too. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of things you can do in it, but at the end of the day, like, replayability isn't necessarily going to be on par with some of the other options that we've talked about. It doesn't have that, which would have been remedied simply by like a horde mode or something like that. Like, imagine if Space Marine 2 had like survival mode like progression like in Modern Warfare 3 or Advanced Warfare. You just had those different maps and different rankings to get to just work your way up,
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Something else that I wanted to touch upon briefly was apparently, did you watch Secret Level, the show on Amazon?
I've seen bits and pieces. It was never interesting to me. Like, at a certain point, I probably will, just so that I can justify all my bitching about it. So that, like, I can say, like, it was whatever. It was meh.
I'm almost done with the season, and there's only a handful of them that were about properties that I gave even a remote shit about. I mean, thank God that the Warhammer one was the best one out of all of them. That one was, it was so good. But just, I've said this before, like, the lineup of games that they chose were just fucking weird. It didn't make any sense. And now apparently my main point here is that the Halo and Doom were supposed to be in it, but Microsoft rejected the offer, or like they rejected the pitch, which blows my mind. Like, you would think that you would want to garner any kind of positive sentiment around your brands, and it was pretty known that the people who made Secret Level also made Love, Death, and Robots, which is this hugely successful show on Netflix. And they just didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't want to do it. And on top of all of that, Doom Guy and Master Chief were supposed to be in the same episode, but Microsoft still rejected the pitch. So, like, I don't understand.
So
let me rephrase that. They rejected the pitch when their reputation is in the fucking toilet.
Yes. So you're gonna hate me.
Oh boy.
That was the right move. I would, if I was in their
Go
position.
on.
No,
I'm not. I don't elaborate, please.
So
because you usually have solid points.
So I operate under, like, very, what's the best way to put this? Very focused worldviews, right? I'm not looking at the fact that the reputation is in the shitter. I'm not looking at the fact that their reputation is in the shitter, right? I'm not looking at the fact that, Halo has already had certain collaborations, like with Fortnite or with that shitty Paramount show. I'm not looking at the fact that, Halo is in a weirder place than it's ever been before, right? I'm not looking at all of that. If I was concerned about brand integrity and doing my IP justice, I would have turned down what I would consider a cheap, key jangling moment, right? So
yeah, no, you have a point. I mean, maybe like a crossover wasn't the right move at all, which it probably wasn't. So maybe them turning it down was the right call.
Yes.
But I think given good writing, let's just take Halo for example, because Doom's story is kind of one-dimensional. So given good writing for a Halo short, if it's like 17 minutes long or something, it could have been awesome, like way
Yes.
better than that piece of shit show that they put
Yes.
out.
So yeah.
Um,
So in context of what Microsoft has already done, it makes no sense for them to have done that. However, if I was looking at it as objectively as possible, I would have gone with what they would have done. At least, I would have probably been more open to just like Halo getting its own episode, because my understanding with Secret Level is like they either took their own take on whatever
Yeah.
property they got their hands on, or in some cases made episodes in a way that you could potentially slot them into the universe, one or the other, with the exception of that one PlayStation World episode, which is just like a crapshoot from my understanding.
I have not watched that one yet. I'm
Yeah.
kind of dreading it, to be honest with you.
My understanding, people have described it as like, remember those Michael TV ads?
No.
Okay, so back in the day, PlayStation ran an advertisement where it's just like they had a bunch of gaming icons and characters sitting in a bar talking about a fella named Michael and how he was awesome and like a hero.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
yeah. And the whole bullet point that you're supposed to take away that is like, Michael is just a player. You are the player experiencing all these things with these characters. How this PlayStation episode has been described to me is that it's basically that, but given a budget and blown up. Like, not that it's
Jesus.
literally that, not the premise literally, but like the takeaway from the
not anything.
episode is basically like that. But anyway, what I would say just about the whole thing, like, I'm very, one thing I've noticed about my myself, and this is more of like a personal thing, just to kind of explain my reasoning, is I look at a lot of things now as like what's good in long term versus what's gratifying directly in front of me, right? Now, if you showed me an animation of Master Chief and Doom Guy and they were just doing cool shit for 10 minutes, I would get some moderate entertainment out of it, probably, right? I'd watch it. But it's like, I think to myself about, what's a good example? Way back when we were in middle school, I think, and YouTube was still relatively new, there was a YouTube series that was relatively short called Dead Fantasy. You probably haven't heard of it.
Nope.
It was, you know what Ruby is? It's kind of like a weird little chintzy, like fake anime, 3D animated show. It was never for me, but it was like the Rooster Teeth guys managed it. But anyway, the guy that made Ruby made this little thing called Dead Fantasy, and the whole point is it was this guy's like fan fiction essentially. It was a crossover between the franchise Dead or Alive and Final Fantasy, and he basically had these models of these characters, and there wasn't really any story to speak of, but it was just like grandiose fights for like 5 to 20 minutes at a time, and he made a handful of them, right? The reason I bring that up is because that was kind of like, that kind of crossover is something that a fan would do for fun, right? To this day, Dead Fantasy is brought up by sub 80 IQ people on the internet describing how they want these series to interact, or like if like recently there was a whole call for like Final Fantasy VII, the character Tifa, to be in Tekken as like a crossover thing, and people are using this Dead Fantasy, fanfic thing from like 20 years ago or however long it's been as like their expectations. So when I hear something like, what if Master Chief and Doom Guy teamed up, I would never officially sanction something like that as like somebody else's TV show, just because it would attract people and change the perception of the thing that I've created to people who only appreciate it for this key jangling moment. So my thinking is a little obtuse, but one of the things that's getting pushed around is brand integrity. And while that makes no fucking sense given how they've treated Halo, I would have done the same. I don't think it's worth, the moment of like, Dan and Anthony sat down and watched this 10-minute, slugfest where Doom Guy and Master Chief killed a bunch of things, right? I don't think that is necessarily worth it, just for the long-term repercussions of what you could do that you may not see at first. That's what makes all this tricky, is you're positing a lot of hypotheticals, right? Where it's just like, it's what starts as like a brief 10-minute collaboration with some random guys that want to do a TV show, and it may look good up front, ends up with like your fan base not necessarily being what it should down the line. I don't know. That's one of the things I weighed, but they said brand integrity. It's kind of a cop-out, but I do agree with it. And it's probably the same reason why Valve isn't getting as much shit for turning down the opportunity to do a Half-Life episode. Valve can do no wrong, I guess. Yeah. That's something we discussed like last week where we were talking about Valve. It's just like they're just golden in some people's eyes. I noticed not a lot of bitching about Half-Life, not getting that episode, but I agree with them too. I wouldn't have done it. That's my whole thing. And I think that given the last thing I'll kind of say is like, my opinion on the secret level is still, it's very much just most of the episodes are key jangling. My understanding is that the Warhammer episode's pretty good. The Unreal Tournament episode's pretty good. The Mega Man episode is all right, but very, very short. But it's just like, it's not like, it's just like a fun little thing to like wave in people's faces. I don't think it's necessarily important or all that great, especially considering most people are just going to forget it anyway until Secret Level Season 2 comes out and they go, oh yeah, I sat down and I watched Unreal Tournament Man do a thing. It's like, it's whatever. But that's my take on it. It seems a little like stuffy, my answer, but like it just with my different perspective, it's like, yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like I look at it this way, like me and you, we'd probably enjoy it for what it is. You'd probably get more out of it than me, but like, at the end of the day, I'm not worried about Dan running off to ruin Halo and Doom, and I know I'm not going to do it. It's just in this modern era of terrible fan bases and just things like that, it's just like, it's not worth it if you actually give a shit. So brand integrity, I kind of get it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a long-winded answer, but that's fine.
I hope it was satisfactory.
It was A+.
Hey.
What do you got? Go ahead.
I actually should have brought this up before when we were talking about the Helldivers 2 support, but Call of Duty. The example I gave is like a shining example of live service done right, is now running like additional like micro transactions. Did you hear about this?
For what game? For COD?
Yes, for Call of Duty.
I mean, I feel like I would have. Go on.
So, when you boot up your Call of Duty and you go to the multiplayer menu, you will now notice you have the store with all of its outrageously priced, bundles. You'll have the Battle Pass, which is free or premium, and then in addition to that, you will now have a separate event that you can pay into, a premium event. Right now,
oh yeah, yes, I heard about this.
So they're running, I forget exactly how much, it's way too much because it should be fucking nothing, but they're running a little event with Squid Game, that one Korean show where it's just like a bunch of
I don't know what
rich
it's about, but
it's my understanding is
I know
that
it exists.
A bunch of people who are down in their luck get offered the opportunity to win a shit ton of money, but it turns out like it's not like a game show. It's like there's game show things, but people are fucking dying for the amusement of like wealthy elites, and it's like it's whatever. It's not really for me, but what the fuck is at this point? But the whole point is like now when you go into Call of Duty, they're doing like events like in this show or whatever, and you have to. It's like a mini battle pass within the system, so you need to pay to get rewards from that event pass on top of if you're already paying for the battle pass and if you're already buying cosmetics.
That's absolutely fucking ridiculous.
It is insane. Remember, these games are already $60, as we discussed.
Yeah.
And it's like, once again, I'm not going to shy away from the fact that, like I say continually, if you look at the battle pass as they first did it, like take a stroll back in time for 5 years, 6 years to Modern Warfare 2019, and you look at how they did their battle pass.
I can't believe it's been that long already.
Well, technically, it's only been 5. Don't worry,
Still,
we're not ancient yet. But
5 years from Modern Warfare 2019. That's just what the fuck.
I kind of wish they called it something different. Would be easy to go back to it. I don't often feel my age when these things happen, but that one kind of stinks a little bit. You can tell me Jack 2 came out like 2 decades ago. I'm like, because time passes, who gives a fuck? But you tell me Modern Warfare 2019 came out 5.5 years ago. I kind of raise an eyebrow a little bit. But anyway, But yeah, so if you go back to Modern Warfare 2019 when it rolled out its battle pass, it was simple. You had the paid, you had the free, all the gameplay content was free. Stellar. But since then they've just spiraled way fucking out of control. I can't justifiably say anything about
Yeah,
that.
it's like really jumped the shark. It's really
Yeah,
bad.
it's fucking wacko. Call of Duty really needed that like break where they just started doing like expansions or something every other year instead of full releases, because it's like it's bloating in a way
Well, they
that like
said they
it
were
just
gonna
can't be
do that, and then they
stemmed.
just didn't.
Well, yeah, well, technically, like Modern Warfare 3 is more a premium expansion than anything else. Like it's that.
Right, but they still call it like a full-fledged product.
Here's a good. Modern Warfare 3 is to Modern Warfare 3 to Modern Warfare 2 is whatever the hell Helldivers is going to be in years from now to what it is now. To kind of tie it all together loosely, but
Well,
yeah.
and forget it. Never mind.
No, yeah, but hold on. Let me see if I can just look this up because I wanna see how much this passes. Okay,
I think it's
Call of Duty-
$10.
Call of Duty.
I'm pretty sure it's $10. I mean, they charge any more than that for an event
Yeah.
like that lasts what 2 3 weeks. What the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah, hold on. Let me go to that. Price. Okay. To buy in, it is 1,100 Call of Duty points, price $10.
Yep.
That's insane, man. And it's like I don't know, like this is so.
You
This is
remember when the
difficult.
biggest problem we have with COD is that you would just get physically tired when talking about it?
Oh God, I long for those days. Man, oh God, that's so like, God, what were we doing, and at what point that I was getting tired when talking about Call of Duty? Was it the original podcast?
Yeah, it was.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, yeah.
yeah.
I longed
It's
for
been
that
ar-
fatigue.
it's been around for so long.
God, like I'm glad we were able to thoroughly enjoy Modern Warfare 2019 and the first rollout of Warzone, and Black Ops Cold War to a much more limited extent, because like it just spiraled out of control from there. The game, everybody we know playing it, like it's just like it's all dialed up to 11.
Yeah,
If you
but
want to
it's
move on,
still working. Black
yeah,
Ops 6 is the best-selling COD ever. Full stop. Which
to
is
move on,
mind-boggling to me.
yeah, to move on from the Squid Games crossover event, which is just ridiculous. Can I just talk about Call of Duty for a second? Because Jesus
Oh boy.
Christ,
Oh, okay.
damn, the future looked so bright years
Oh
ago,
yeah,
man.
it did, but then
'Cause,
greed got
like,
its hooks in, and that was
we
that.
played the alpha, we played the beta, we were
Yep,
elated to be playing
yep,
Call of Duty again,
yep.
and
It was a
then
good time,
it's like
and then it
whole
wasn't.
like it's like they spiraled right out of control. They started doing all these crazy crossovers. The people we play with, Dan, they they're going just as fast as
Yeah.
the fucking corporate, because they run themselves ragged and they burn themselves out, but they're stuck in like a feedback loop with the game. Call of Duty is a monster. It's always been like ridiculous,
it
but
is
now it's like a fucking monster.
it is the epitome of die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become
It's
the enemy.
so crazy. Like, here's the thing: I'm not going to romanticize what came before Modern Warfare 2019, right? Because like Call of Duty was on the outs for a while. Like, it just wasn't fun to play. Like Advanced Warfare, I enjoyed it. World War II, I kind of enjoyed it, but it was not Call of Duty 2 or 4 or Modern Warfare 2. It wasn't the heyday. But it's like I don't know. Like, I would settle for just hearing about the kids playing the latest Call of Duty, but it's just like we're stuck in this bizarre orbit, Dan. It's like I'm constantly hearing about this, like it's ramping up. It's like we're spinning out of orbit here, because it's like I can't, it's
Mike,
fucking
get it out. You could do it.
like I'm just like in my mind it's just flashing in front of me. It's like $30 bundles, and like all of our friends are sitting there playing the game, but they're also bitching about the game, and they're talking about non-existent issues when there's real issues to be talking about.
Did you ever read the comic Tokyo Ghost?
I might have. It sounds familiar. Let me see. Let me Google it.
Because what you're describing sounds a lot like in this comic Tokyo Ghost. It takes place in a dystopian future, and there's two main characters. Like one of the protagonists, her name is Debbie, the other, I forgot his name, but like he's this really big guy, but he's completely addicted to the corporate like mainstream stuff. Like I don't, it's hard to explain. I haven't read it in a while, but it's one of my favorite comics ever, and it like he just loses himself to all these ads and like uh greed vomit. Um, and what you're describing sounds exactly like this. You should read that graphic novel if you ever get the chance to.
It's yeah, it's just it's crazy to me because it's like I don't like I've stayed the same, right?
Hmm.
You've stayed the same, but
I
it's
think so.
like everything else around it, like it's just so crazy that in and this is all on the scale of Call of Duty. Like I'm not talking about anything
Right.
else, but it's just it's crazy to me that it's like almost like a rushing river, right? Like occasionally we want to dip a toe in because Call of Duty's Call of Duty, you know. I'm talking about how much of a nightmare it is, but at the end of the day, it's still a game you can go in and play, right? But it's like, and I don't mean to put him on the spot, but he's never gonna fucking watch this, so it doesn't matter. Look at Eric as an
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah.
He was sitting there next to us playing all casual, right? Or not casual, I should say, because we the misunderstanding, this is another one of my gripes. A misunderstanding with casual gameplay is not like, oh, you're okay with losing. It's just like, I'm not sweating. I'm playing competently and enjoying myself, right? I play to win, but I don't try myself not. That's apparently a concept that's just completely lost to people. But anyway, you look at Eric. He's sitting there. He's playing with us, right? And we play. And at a certain point, he spins out of control, right? And now it's just like he's not just playing with us. He's playing with everybody. He's playing like 3 to 5 hours a day, and like he's taking it super competitively, and he's going fucking nuts. He's losing mind, and then all of a sudden it's like, gotta get the wins, but I hate playing this fucking game, so it just spirals out of control. Oh, there's cheaters, but there's not really cheaters. Oh, the game's not working, but sometimes it actually does work. There's all this kinds of shit, and it's just like hysteria. And like everybody is fucking playing it that way. It's nuts. It's basically like you need to either play it like you and me, which is like occasionally touch it when other people want to play and just to tune out the noise, or you need to be like the literal like burnout stoner that just like sits there and just mashes buttons and doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Like it's just I don't like what it's become, more so than what I didn't like about it, like being like just a soulless like low quality cash grab. Like it's a nightmare now. Like it's a nightmare every way you look at it. Like, what is it going to look like in a year?
It's gonna look like the same thing, only I think next year it's supposed to be another future one, or is it World War II? I don't fucking know.
We're gonna see what's like. It's going to. What's the best way to put this? Like, they're accelerating towards never stopping the flow of content. And that's frightening because they have like 20 studios constantly cranking out content that works less and less to people who are getting angrier and angrier, but are also suspiciously wealthy and willing to pay like $30. This doesn't end well. Like people worry about like AI and social media and world wars. Somebody needs to finally address this Call of Duty situation because we're building to something fucking frightening. And it's not just like brand integrity and all these crossovers and all this bullshit. People are like, it's I don't have words to describe how bizarrely micro dystopic Call of Duty has become. Like it used to be just like a thing where it's just like, oh, you're getting overcharged, but you play a game for a year, right? Now it's like I'm jacked in, and it's just like fucking. It's like just a nightmare of like content and angry people and shit. It's I don't know where it goes from here. It needs like to suck again. Go back to sucking consistently, please.
I don't. Can we move on?
Yeah, we can move on because I can tell you're getting tired while I'm freaking the fuck out over Call of Duty.
Yeah, because I think the roles have reversed. I now get physically exhausted when talking about COD, and you're just like, this something has to change.
Something has to change. Unplug the machine or fix it. But God, it can't keep going on like this.
Jesus fucking Christ!
All right, what else you got? Let's wind down a little bit here.
The last thing that I have was about Naughty Dog being sold to Sony because of ballooning budgets, and apparently it was the right call. But that I mean, I feel like this article came out like yesterday, but this took place back in 2001. So
Yes, this is a long.
it's a little late.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth talking about, but yeah, I did see that article pop up the other day.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to say. Like, apparently, things were just getting out of hand financially, and they needed a way out. And Sony came along and was like, "Hey, you guys need funding," and that was that.
I am curious to see exactly what was causing the budgets to bloat like that. That would be my main question. Because like
Apparently, Naughty Dog started in the 1980s, which is fucking crazy.
yeah, it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Ballooning game, the sale became necessary to keep making the best games possible. See, I see that language, and I'm just like, listen, I understand that at the end of the day, games cost something to make, right? But it sounds like mismanagement to me.
Probably.
Let's see, again. However, it couldn't last. But Jack and Dexter was a $15 million game, while Jack 3 was blah, 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 blah. Yeah, like, listen, I'm not going to pretend it's easy. I'm not going to pretend it's cheap, but I feel like this is mismanagement. Just
Yeah,
looking
most
at
likely. We'll never really know. This is just one guy being like, "Yeah, it was the right call. We just got out of control with our money, and that was that."
Yeah. So, I guess there's more to
That was the only other thing that I had.
Yeah. Now speaking of Sony, what do you know about Fair Games?
Nothing.
Okay. Well, fuck. I was kind of hoping you did know something about it.
Sorry.
I know very little about it. The only reason I even have it even anywhere near my radar is it's just like it's supposed to be like another live service PvP game. And it's just like, I don't know why Sony is pushing this after Concord fucking failed.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it confusing. I was kind of hoping you knew more about it, as far as like, you know, just from somebody who would be in the space to be courted, so to speak, by their advertisements.
No, sorry, that one's over my head.
I mean, to be completely fair, that could just be, that just could mean bad things for this, because you're the exact target audience for this game. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there'll be more to say about that later, but they're careening towards a potential disaster. I think they're going to be smarter than they were in when they did Concord. I think they learned some things, just not the right things. So I guess we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. What else? This is kind of like a smaller thing to kind of ask you about. So, the Nintendo Switch. What is your opinion on the console as we are nearing the end of its life?
I think it's a solid, probably one of the best things that Nintendo did.
Mm-hmm.
And they really mastered the hardware, because things that come out for it now still run just as well.
That's a good way to put it.
But all that being said, it's time for a new one. I think we've reached the end of its rope.
Yes, I distinctly remember at one point, I was talking. It was at some point we were talking about. It was probably on one of these episodes. I can't remember exactly what, but we were talking about like a Nintendo announcement show. It might have been a direct where they were showing all the shows, and I said to you something along the lines of like, yeah, you know, kind of what you just said, where it's like the Nintendo games are running pretty fine. You know, they're running pretty good, but all the third-party stuff is not running all that great, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's kind of an unavoidable issue of first party versus third party. As if you were making your own games for your own platform, you will always, hopefully, try your best to make sure everything runs perfectly. That's one of the benefits of first party on first party. But recently, a leak happened that's pretty close to being verified, or even if it's not verified, it's around the same expectations for the Switch 2.
Okay.
And people are saying it's about PS4 Pro levels of power.
What?
Compared to the Switch's PlayStation 4, if they were to put it that way.
That seems like a pretty big jump. And is this supposed to be a handheld console again?
Yeah. Yep. And the funny
I'll
thing
believe
about
it when
that,
I see
Dan,
it.
everybody else is having the opposite reaction to what you just said. Everybody is going, this is completely believable, and it's also the worst thing ever. Nintendo is done. You know, for the 8 millionth year in a row, Nintendo is going to die, Dan. It's because the Switch 2 is only as powerful as a PS4 Pro. And I think it's again that goldfish memory that everybody seems to have, right? Graphics arguably plateaued around the time of the PS4 Pro. Like, we have not made any like notable or like important or like gains that are completely necessary to like worry about like a jump being like just to that level, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So it's like I guess I wanted to see what your opinion of like if it launched with the specs of a PS4 Pro, do you think that would be enough for Nintendo to coast for another 6 years in the console market? Yeah,
100%.
Because you're a smart person. You're not a fucking retard. Because at the end of the day, it's just
They're
like
only making fucking Mario and Zelda. Like, what? How much power do you need?
Exactly. They have everything they need as a first party, and all of the partners that are willing to work with them they'll either have to get in line or they'll lose out on that market. You know?
Yeah, which will be a tremendous hit. So like, it'll be fine.
Yeah, and it's just like it kind of brings me to that thing I keep telling you about, or I keep bitching about, which is just developers just need to step their game up when it comes to coding. We need to stop relying on the middleware and outsourcing because you won't be able to be on these platforms. Like, Nintendo's not going to budge for you. Like, if you can't run on the modern day consoles, the ones that we're on now or the ones that we're going to, like, that's a problem. That's a coding problem. That's a developer issue. That's not an issue of the hardware at this point. Just because it's just like machines like the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Say what you will about hyper realistic graphics that we're dealing with now, but if you had a decent game and a knack for art style, and you weren't trying to make like spectacle games, right? You can make whatever the fuck you want. I would say 90% of visions can be complete on these systems, right? Mm-hmm. That remaining 10% being for things where it's just like hyper advanced, like a Star Citizen, or like what Crackdown 3 was supposed to be with like the full real-time destruction. Like, that's specialty stuff where you basically need better hardware and you need to work things around. But it's just like I'm hearing stories about like, oh, Wukong Fallen Dynasty, or what the fuck. I always get them. What's Black Myth? Because there's Wukong and there's Wolong. Just fucking come up with different names. Black Myth Wukong, the monkey game, the one that we talked about briefly. Game. Yes, that's what I'm going to call it, just because it's easier to keep track of. It's like the developers were apparently saying like, oh, it's not on the Xbox because it can't run on the Xbox Series S. Meanwhile, Rockstar, and all of my gripes against Rockstar, says they are confident that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to run on the Series S. So it's like, what's the problem here, buddy? Because I know for damn sure there's nothing in your game that warrants like oh, it just can't be done any other way. Optimization. Again, I bitch about this nearly every other week. Optimization is just so far gone and out the window. We should be in fucking nirvana right now. But between all the shit that we've been dealing with for the last decade, with people not getting hired on merit, and people getting dumber, and talent being lost, we are squandering this great hardware and this great potential. And instead, we're squabbling about, oh, I can't run on this, so I'm going to need to wait 2 console generations for the game to be multi-platform. I'm so fucking sick of it. I'm sick of hearing about hardware issues, Dan, I guess is what I'm getting at, is because we have amazing hardware, teams are bigger than ever, the budgets are apparently so big that like companies can't survive without being bought out. It's just like, something's got to give. Just something's got to give.
I wish I had an answer for you again, but as long as the money keeps on flowing, this is going to keep happening.
It's just ridiculous. Just fucking stop outsourcing.
Back in my day, we fit an 800 megabyte game on a 64 megabyte cartridge, and we still had Easter eggs.
Listen, you say that to me to make light of my complaint, but it's absolutely true. Go back in time. Remove these people from that timeline and plop them here and give them the hardware. After they're done getting over how amazing it is, they will make a golden age of games the likes you haven't seen before.
One of my favorite memes ever.
Yeah, it's a great meme.
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing else.
I
I'm
think
done.
that's about wrapped up. I ranted way more than I wanted to. It's just I wanted to get
It's
2025
okay.
off with
I
just a clean slate, but
A good
all
old
that
Anthony rant. It's like the
yeah,
whole
but
episode.
like I don't like rambling. I like coherent conversation. Like I loved discussing the possibility of a Helldivers 2 support and the theoretics of that. I didn't want to have a nightmare fueled dream driven by Call of Duty or to rant about the state of the industry again. We're supposed
Well,
to be
it's
moving
good.
past that.
It happened.
Yeah, it did.
Okay. I love me a good Anthony rant.
I'll try to keep them. I'll try to keep them condensed to one area, not half the fucking episode next time. Oh
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that. Well,
Okay.
what episode was this? Because we had
I
to
think this is
pause.
30. I think this is 37.
37 or 36? Hold on, I'm checking right now. Stand
Double
by.
check. Get the numbers.
Yeah, had to. This is 37.
This is
Okay.
37. Wrapped up.
Yeah, this was episode 37. So thank you, anybody who is
Yeah.
listening, for listening. I mean, we've been averaging a pretty decent
Yeah.
ship, so it's not terrible.
Stick with us. I'm gonna get more coherent.
Yep. less ranting.
Less ranting.
Maybe more.
And
Depends
guess
on the
what?
day.
When I rant less, that means the industry's getting better.
It's been a
Pray
year.
for my
so-
rants to get less frantic, because the like. If months from now it's just an hour of me yelling and Dan doesn't get to fucking say a thing, we're in deep shit.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, well, that was episode 37. Thank you for listening, and we will see everybody next week.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.